Hello, my name is Lydia Radin, and what you're about to see is a minute and 45-second videotape that was taken on the second floor of 40 Foley Square. This is a building in Lower Manhattan. The second floor is where the grand jury rooms are, and you're going to watch me knock on a door and hand a yellow piece of paper to the staff person. Looks like a secretary, could be an administrative assistant, and I say to this person, here's another phone number for you. It's the phone number of Joe Barton and Paula Gloria. Joe Barton and Paula Gloria had their home stolen from them in a non-judicial foreclosure. Non-judicial foreclosures are unlawful. They're illegal in New York State. And we checked with Judge Shack before he died, and he also confirmed that non-judicial foreclosures are illegal in New York, as did one of the judges down in landlord-tenant court. Nevertheless, Joe Barton and Paula Gloria's right, constitutionally protected and guaranteed right to due process, was violated when their home was taken from them in a non-judicial foreclosure. So because this is a constitutional violation, they have every right to go down to the federal grand jury, and the U.S. attorney, that would be Preet Bharara, must, not may, but must prosecute for constitutional violations. And this is as per Judge Broderick in the Southern District of New York in a ruling that's called, it's entitled in re grand jury application. No, in the matter of in re grand jury application. The citation is 617 Fed Sup 199, where federal Judge Broderick says there's a group of crime victims in 1985, and they hire a private attorney, and that private attorney makes a petition to the supervising judge of the federal grand jury down in the Southern District of New York. And, he says that these people want to go and present the facts to a federal grand jury because they're crime victims. And the U.S. Attorney's Office is trying to stop them because the U.S. Attorney's Office claims that they're the ones who decide who gets remedy and who doesn't. They're the kings and the queens, they're the Lord King God Emperor, and they're going to decide who gets remedy and who doesn't. That's not the way our system works. And Judge Broderick tells them, the first thing he says in this ruling, in the matter of in re grand jury application 617 Fed Sup 199, the first thing Judge Broderick says is, for constitutional violations, the U.S. attorney must prosecute, because we don't sometimes obey our Constitution and sometimes we don't. And he also goes on to say, and you can read this ruling for yourself, he also goes on to say that for racketeering, which in my case, for example, would be defined as collection of an illegal debt, Yeshiva University and its medical school, notably Dan Rozelle and Martin Bachstein, executed a fraud on me. They stipulated to Yeshiva University and its medical school, the officials associated with Yeshiva University and its medical school stipulated to fraud and discrimination against me. Those are also hate crimes. So for racketeering, which is defined as collection of an illegal debt, and that would be collecting for classes that were never given to me, and that's for racketeering. The U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara also must, not may, but must prosecute. So this little video that you're going to see is me going down to the federal grand jury at 40 Foley Square last year. That would be February 4th, 2015. I knock on the door. Now, you can see that I'm not trying to gain unauthorized access to the grand jury rooms because I'm just standing out in the hallway. And it's legal and lawful to film in the corridors, auditoriums, that's the nerve damage that was inflicted on me, unfortunately. In the foyers, so in the auditoriums, in the corridors, and the foyers of federal buildings, it's lawful to photograph for news purposes. So I did so. And I'm not doing anything unlawful or illegal. However, the U.S. Marshal Service, that would be Deputy U.S. Marshal James Howard, does not want me going to the federal grand jury because he knows he's going to be indicted for conspiracy. And that would be conspiracy to commit federal student loan fraud, racketeering, which is collection of an illegal debt, which is the federal student loan fraud in my case. So on February 4th, 2015, I go to 40 Foley Square, second floor, knock on the door, write down my name and phone number, hand it to the support staff. And there's another video that you're going to see where obviously I'm not trying to gain access to the federal grand jury rooms. I'm not trying to storm the grand jury rooms. I'm just standing out in the hall, giving my name and phone number to the staff, saying I'm a crime victim. I'm being subjected to racketeering, hate crimes, constitutional violations, and I'd like to make an appointment to sit down with the federal grand jury as per this ruling with Judge Broderick. Oh, and what Judge Broderick says in this ruling that I already cited to, he admonishes the U.S. attorney, and what he says is, Judge Broderick is trying to maintain the status quo. So what he says in this ruling, in the matter of In Re Grand Jury Application 617 Fed Sup 199, he says, that's the citation. What he says is that he strongly suggests that the U.S. attorney should take this attorney who was hired by this group of crime victims, into the grand jury as a witness to present the facts that these people have alleged. So he's trying to maintain the status quo. All right, well, I'm a pro se, and I'm sui juris, pro se, pro per. I'm an educated person who can speak for herself. And the CPLR in New York defines anyone who prosecutes their own case or litigates their own case as an attorney. So I'm an attorney characterized as such by the CPLR. I don't particularly agree with it, but that's what the CPLR says. That would be the civil practice law and rules. So Preet Bharara, the U.S. attorney, could take me as an attorney, as I've been characterized, into the federal grand jury as a witness, just like in the same manner that Judge Broderick in 1985 strongly suggested to the U.S. attorney that he take this private attorney that this group of crime victims hired into the federal grand jury to present the facts. Now, the last thing that the U.S. Marshals in the Southern District of New York want is me going into the grand jury to present the facts, because they'll be indicted for money laundering and conspiracy, fraud, and federal student loan fraud, because Deputy U.S. Marshal James Howard, Deputy U.S. Marshal Jerry Sanseverino in Newark, New Jersey, and Deputy U.S. Marshal Paul Safer out in Trenton, New Jersey, have been conspiring to commit federal student loan fraud, collection of an illegal debt against me and taxpayers. So what you're going to see in this little video, this minute and 45 minutes, is me going up to the federal grand jury for, I don't know, the second or third time on February 4th, 2015. I knock on the door. I give the lady that comes to the door, the secretary, and remember, I'm filming in the corridors where it's lawful to film. It's lawful to photograph for news purposes. And I hand, you can see me hand the secretary, lady, administrator, whoever she is, staff person. I hand her a yellow piece of paper and I say, I have another phone number for you. That's Joe Barton's phone number, Paula Gloria's phone number. They're crime victims. They need to make an appointment to speak to the foreman of the federal grand jury to start an investigation into widespread systemic public corruption in their case. They have had their home taken from them with a non-judicial foreclosure. They need to speak to someone about this, to start an investigation, to criminally prosecute the dishonest judges and attorneys. And the secretary says, yeah, I'll give it to the appropriate people. And I say, well, who are the appropriate people? Oh, we'll give it to the authorities. And I say, well, who are the authorities? And she says, we'll give it to the U.S. Attorney's Office. That would be Preet Bharara's office. And I'm like, no, ma'am, you won't, because that's not the proper person that we asked. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, that would be Preet Bharara, is not Lord, King, God, Emperor, who decides who gets remedy and who doesn't. So this is, and obviously, AUSA, Assistant U.S. Attorney Stephanie Lake, did not do a thorough investigation, because obviously I'm not trying to gain unauthorized access to the grand jury rooms. I'm just reporting racketeering to the federal grand jury. It's not a crime to report racketeering to the federal grand jury. It's our duty to report racketeering and constitutional violations to the federal grand jury, so that the wrongdoers, in my case, that would be Yeshiva University, its medical school, and officials associated with this racist school. Remember, Yeshiva University and its medical school stipulated to fraud and discrimination. That would be hate crimes against me. So, and also, they violated my constitutionally protected and guaranteed rights. So, for violating my constitutionally protected and guaranteed rights, and for racketeering, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara should be taking me, Lydia Radin, into the federal grand jury to seek an indictment against the wrongdoers against me, because for constitutional violations, Preet Bharara must, not may, but must prosecute, because we don't sometimes obey a constitution, sometimes we don't. And the same is true for Joe Barton and Paula Gloria. Oh yeah, and by the way, Joe Barton is a decorated war hero. He's a decorated war veteran. So U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, there was some talk on the street that U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara wanted to run for governor next year. Oh yes, and he's prosecuting he's prosecuting police officers, and he's prosecuting some dishonest politicians. But in his own courthouse, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara is allowing crimes and corruption to happen. And this is the way U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara will allow someone like Joe Barton, a decorated military veteran, to have his home stolen without due process of law in a non-judicial foreclosure. So, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, if you do run for governor, you just lost the military vote. So what we would expect, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, is that you would immediately, without delay, contact Paula Gloria and Joe Barton and prosecute the dishonest attorneys, banksters, and judges who took their home from them in a non-judicial foreclosure, which is illegal in New York State. And in my case, U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, I would expect that you would immediately take me to the federal grand jury to prosecute the officials associated with Yeshiva University and its medical school. That would be Dan Rizal and Martin Bachstein for federal student loan fraud, collection of an illegal debt, and I want all my money refunded to me and all my records given to me, including my letters of recommendation from Senator Moynihan's office and my letters of recommendation that are on Walter Reed letterhead. So let's go to the videotape. This is 1 minute, 45 seconds, where you can see that the U.S. Marshal Service has lied to AUSA Stephanie Lake, because I am not seeking unauthorized access to the grand jury rooms. I am doing my duty and reporting racketeering and constitutional violations to the federal grand jury. The federal grand jury, the members of the federal grand jury, have sworn an oath to diligently investigate all crimes in their district. So I'm doing the right thing here. So let's go to the videotape. Oh, and yes, by the way, there's another little videotape too, where I'm talking, and I'll show that in the next clip, where I'm talking to one of the staff members in the federal grand jury rooms located second floor, 40 Foley Square, and she specifically refers me to Chief Judge Preska, the very same chief judge that's responsible for falsifying records at the Southern District of New York and changing unlawfully my writ of prohibition by changing words and phrases and changing the caption. Chief Judge Loretta Preska is directly responsible for changing my writ of prohibition into a complaint so she can shift the burden of proof, which, by the way, is even more criminality by the former chief judge in the Southern District of New York. And that's also on my Crooked Doctors website. So last time I talked to the NYPD, the New York City Police Department officers, they succinctly phrase this as clean your house, Preet Bharara, before you come to the precinct house to prosecute police officers. Clean your house, Preet Bharara. You've got chief judges committing crimes. That would be Chief Judge Loretta Preska, and in another case of mine, Chief Magistrate Judge Deborah Freeman. Clean your house, Preet Bharara. Oh, and by the way, it's your AUSAs, Stephanie Lake and Michael Ferrara, who are colluding in these crimes. Clean your house, Preet Bharara, before you come to the precinct house to prosecute police officers. That's from a couple of my friends who are 911 first responders. Certainly said it succinctly. So let's go to the videotape. Thank you. When does it smell like orange?
Hi. I have another phone number for you.
I've already forwarded the information.
No, this is another person. Yeah, here. It's Joe Barton and Paula Gloria. That's their cell phone number. They're crime victims. They need to speak with they want to make an appointment and have a face-to-face meeting so they can press criminal charges in their case also.
Okay.
Thank you. Who did you forward it to?
I can't give you that information.
You can't tell me who you forwarded my complaint to? But the foreman of the grand jury will be contacting me, yes?
We'll take care of it.
It's not we'll take care of it. The foreman of the grand jury will be
We'll contact you. We will take care of it.
Who's we?
This office will take care of it.
We'll take care of what? I need to speak to the grand jury. You're not supposed to be blocking my access to the grand jury.
I'm not blocking your access. I'm giving it to the authorities so the proper procedures can be followed.
What authorities?
The U.S. Attorney's Office.
The U.S. Attorney's Office does not referee whether I get to speak with the federal grand jury or not. You're mistaken, ma'am. That's evasive, ma'am.